slide, so.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, all my friends. Today, our group will present the material of English language teaching methodology and innovation. There are some topics that we are discussed today. The first one is communicative language teaching for 21st century, and the second one, communicative approach. The third one, the need for maintaining CLT in Indonesia. This group consists of two members, RIDA MARLENIE and SUSI HERMIYATI. The first topic will be presented by Mbak Rida. Mbak Rida, please, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for Mbak Susi. Thank you for ma'am and all of our friends in the class. Today, I would like to present about two topics. They are communicative language teaching for the 21st century and communicative approach. Okay, we go on to first topic, communicative language teaching in the 21st century, the principal communicative approach. Okay, we go on to introduction first. Communicative language teaching or CLT has become a real buzzword in language teaching methodology, but it covers a very wide range of variants that are only loosely related to each other. It means that over the past 2 decades, communicative language teaching or CLT has become a real buzzword in a language teaching methodology, but the extent to which the term covers a well-defined and uniform method is highly questionable. So for the first one, we go to see what is communicative language teaching. What is CLT? CLT first appeared in the 1970s to promote the teaching of active and meaningful communicative skills. For example, it is consists of communicative competence. Through learner participation in communicative events, it is according to Savignon. CLT is consists of communicative. Here we promote a learner's ability to use language to communicate successfully. Okay, we go to next. Key feature of CLT. There are some key features of CLT. Their activities promote real communication that is engage learner in the authentic, functional use of language. So CLT promote real communication. It is happen in the class. It make the student and teacher can communicate as a real. And then the second one, classroom communicative situation should resemble real life communication as much as possible. It's same with the first one. The classroom become a real life communication as much as possible. And then the third one is fluency is more important than accuracy. And then the last key feature of CLT is typical communicative activity. So there are some typical communicative activities in CLT. They are role play, discussion, problem solving tasks, simulation, projects, and games. Okay, now we going to problem with CLT. So there are two problems with CLT. The first one is CLT did not properly address the learning. And the second one, there is no single tag or authority. It means on CLT, nor any single model that is universally accepted as authoritative. According to Ricard and Roger, 2000. We go on to the first one, CLT didn't properly psychology of learning. It's mean in the CLT, the only learning specific skill is the broad tenet of learning through doing. So in the CLT, cognitive competence not in seeking situational meaning, but just on learning specific principle. And then, so the communicative language teaching also reform only focus on the linguistic course content. No properly articulation psychology of learning in the CLT. Psychology of learning in here in the mental aspect of language and so it is primarily concerned with the way in which language is represented and communicated. It is presented. And then the second one, there is a single text or authority on CLT, nor any single model that is universally accepted as authoritative, according to that in 2001. It is because the vagueness of seeking situational meaning diverse variety of CLT around the world. So, for example, contradictory stances with respect to the teaching of grammar. So it is no single text authority. From the problem of this CLT, it's become the explanation about explicit and implicit learning in here. So we're going to explicit learning. Explicit learning, it means the learner conscious and deliberate attempt to master some material or solve a problem. This is the learning type or emphasized by most school instruction. And then the second one, implicit learning, acquiring skill and knowledge without conscious awareness, that is automatically and with no conscious attempt to learn them. You can say in the other language that academic learning is based on explicit learning. So the example of explicit learning, it is on the academic learning. And then the implicit learning, it is children mastery of their first language. It is implicit learning. Okay. From explicit and implicit learning, we go to the improvement of CLT, contextual language teaching. So the conclusion is the real challenge of modern language instruction is find ways to maximize the cooperation of explicit and implicit learning. So in the 21st century, it is very important to explicit and implicit learning. It is we must be maximized. Okay, next. After the CLT problems and the discovery of explicit and implicit learning that must be maximized in the contextual language teaching, the ongoing transformation of CLT, it is there are 7 main principles of the principal communicative approach. So 7 principles of communicative approach. The first one is the most significant principle. It means that the PCA should be meaning focused on personally significant. And then the second one is the controlled practice principle. It means that the PCA should also include control practice activities to promote the automatism of second language skill. And then the third one is the declarative input principle. It means that the PCA should involve explicit initial input components that are then proceduralized through practice. And the fourth is the focus on form principle. It means that PCA should also pay attention to the formal or structural aspect of the second language that determine accuracy and appropriateness as the linguistic, discourse, and practical level. And then the fifth is the formulaic language principle. It means that the PCA should include the teaching of formulaic language as a feature component. And then the sixth, the language exposure principle. It means that PCF should offer learner extensive exposure to large amount of second language input that can fit the learner implicit learning mechanism. And then the last one is the focused interaction principle. It means for such communication practice should always have a specific formal or functional focus and should be associated with target practice to practice. So it is about the CLT. So communicative approach is improvement of CLT. Now we're going to our second topic, communicative approach. What is communicative approach? Communicative approach is a learner-centered this approach gives the learner not only grammatically competence, but also a social skill as to what to say, how to say, when to say, and where to say it, in order to satisfy his daily needs as larger aim. Okay, this is about communicative approach. The goal of communicative approach. What is the goal of communicative approach? It is to make learner communicatively competency. In the communicative approach, the teacher is seen as a facilitator of his student in the learning, in the teaching learning process. Okay, communicative approach, it is there are communicative competence in the communicative approach. Communicative competence, there are 8 aspects of communicative competence. They are grouped into 2 parts. The first is linguistic aspect, and then the second one is pragmatic aspect. Linguistic aspect, it is consists of phonology and grammatical description, grammar, vocabulary, and discourse. And then pragmatic aspect, it is consists of function, variation, interaction skill, and cultural framework. Okay, we continue to merits or the advantages of communicative approach. The first one is main function of communicative approach is to develop communication. It means that they provide with optimum opportunities to use the language in the communicative approach. And then the second one, this approach creates communicative environment among learner, teacher, and society. It means they are motivated to form the bridge of communication and to make use a real life language, in other words, language in use. And then the third is this approach is child or learner centered. It means that it is very scientific. This approach is very scientific. All the teaching material are prepared according to mentality and interest of the student. And the fourth is, in this approach, every learner are active during teaching because they are interacting among unit learner and teacher. It means that they communicate verbally and non-verbally to each other. So every student in the class is active. The last one is this approach provides sufficient opportunity to students for practice of communication with other students or people. Okay, for next presentation, it present by my friend Mbak Susi. Mbak Susi. Okay, Mbak Susi, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Rida. Well, ma'am and my friends, today my turn to explain about the need for maintaining CLT in Indonesia. This lesson taken from Ariadna article from State University of Medan. There are several content that will explain here. The first one is defining CLT, unity in diversity. Second one, implementing CLT, pros and cons. The third one, CLT adoption in Indonesia. The fourth one, CLT implementation in Indonesia, challenges and solutions. There are 4 points here. The first one, teacher expertise, student participation, class size and teaching time, grammar-based syllabus, and exam. Okay, next. Okay, the first one, defining CLT, unity in diversity. Larson Freeman at 2000 suggests that CLT is the term commonly used in the pedagogical literature to describe an approach which aims to implement the theory of communicative competence by incorporating the interdependence of language and communication. Generally, when people think about CLT, an image comes to mind of teachers who conduct classroom activities which focus on students' meaningful communication to support the language learning process. The second one is about Brown 2007. He contends that CLT definitions share 4 major concepts. The 4 major concepts are communicative competence, meaningful communication, fluency, and spontaneity. Here, students are meaningfully exposed to the pragmatic, authentic, and functional use of language to improve their fluency. Furthermore, students are taught to speak naturally in unrehearsed conditions or without practice as a step to building spontaneity. The third one, Brown 2007, explained that CLT is best understood as an approach rather than a method. As explained by my friends before, CLT as an approach allows more interpretation to exist than most methods do in terms of classroom practice. Thus, although CLT tenets or principles are well recognized at the level of theory, there is much room for modifications at the level of implementation. The fourth one is about him, 2007. He describes that CLT practices may vary from one classroom to another depending on the contextual design and procedural. So the application of CLT in the classroom do not same in every classroom. Next, please. Now implementing CLT in the point of pros and cons. As we know that the last 2 decades have seen numerous methods and approaches in English language pedagogy. Among the existing language teaching methods and approaches, CLT is a special interest and has gained considerable support from many authors and teachers. However, just as CLT has supporters, it also has its detractors who criticize the dominance of CLT. According to Lazar Freeman, this classifies these people as relativists. So the people who are detractors to the CLT called relativists. One of the leading proponents of this relativist movement is Beck's 2003. According to Beck's, the version of CLT developed in Western countries might not be appropriate to the educational context of other parts of the world. Of course, applying CLT in English native speaker is different with other country. So he has opposite ideas with the CLT. Next, Leo 2004 contends that the adoption of CLT in a country such as China, is actually the right solution for the country's language teaching system. And then she essentially opposes the relativist position and argues that all language difficulties caused by contextual factors, such as large classes and a structure-based syllabus, can be overcome by local teachers and educational authorities. In the midst of the continuous debates, next please.
Okay.
In the midst of the continuous debates around the strengths and limitations of CLT, then HIP in 2007 offers a useful clarification for both of pro and contras about the implementing the CLT. He asserts that the problematic issues of CLT do not stem from the approach itself nor from the contextual constraints which many teachers face at the level of implementation. The real concerns of CLT lie in how local teachers adopt CLT tenets or principles to fit the conditions of their classroom and their learners' needs. So he suggests that, not yet, back please.
Okay.
So we have to consider the condition of the classroom and also the learner's needs. As an approach, CLT should not be regarded as a set of fixed techniques which cannot be altered. In fact, the efforts to implement CLT should be seen as a reflective and dynamic process of gaining a better understanding of CLT ideas and finding appropriate ways of coping with situational constraints. So we have to consider the condition of the classroom and also learners' needs. In other words, although CLT implementation is subject to inherent contextual constraints, this does not prevent the usefulness of CLT tenets or principles from enabling students to use the target language. So contextual constraints that become the contraversion of the implementing CLT should not stop teachers and policymakers from making efforts to promote CLT principles in the classroom. We have to consider the condition and also the learner's needs. Next, please. The next one is about CLT adoption in Indonesia. As we know that the spread of globalization and modernization around the world has made the need to acquire English as a language of international communication in many East Asian countries have issued important policies regarding language instruction in their countries. In Indonesia, for example, the teaching and learning of English has been given a special status. Up to 1990, compulsory subject for 6 years, lower secondary school to upper secondary school. With the introduction of the 1994 national curriculum, however, the government recommended that English be taught from primary through the tertiary level of education. Following the formalization of English language teaching in schools, the Indonesian educational authorities are faced with the problem of effective English teaching as a way to address students' low proficiency in English. Research supports that the claims that the English teaching programs in Indonesia have been unsuccessful. The worst case scenario offered by Darwi Jojo that most Indonesia high school graduates are not able to comprehend even simple text written in English, let alone use the language orally for communicative purposes. Okay, next. The next one, in recognition of the teaching shortcomings, however, Indonesian policymakers attempted to make changes to the objectives of English language education that focus on grammar and translation. In 1994, an English curriculum is a revised version of its predecessor and was designed to facilitate and enhance students' competence in the 4 skills of English within the communicative approach. Mustafa outlined the major objectives of the 1994 curriculum as follows. The first one, development of communicative competence. It means that the ability to use English for communicative purposes covers all 4 macro skills such as reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And the second one, mastery of linguistic aspects. It is to be used to support communicative abilities in both oral and also in written forms. And the next one, assessment, is integrated. It means that covering more than one language component and communicative, not based exclusively on linguistic element only. CLT, from these points, the 1994 curriculum reflects the key ideas of CLT and thus represents a significant shift or move from the structure-based methods to the communicative-based approaches. Since the adoption of CLT in Indonesia, the conceptualization and implementation of the English language curriculum continues to be reviewed and updated, such as after 1994 curriculum to 2004 curriculum, and then to KTSP and the newest one, curriculum 2013. Okay, next please. Okay, now CLT implementation in Indonesia, challenges and solutions. As with other EFL countries, Indonesia also has faced contextual problems at the level of implementation. So there are 4 problems that are faced by the teacher in implementing of the CLT. The first one, teacher expertise, student participation, class size and teaching time, and also grammar-based syllabus and exam. Okay, let's see one by one. Next, please. Okay, teacher expertise. A focus of continuous debate with regard to CLT implementation at the classroom level has been the topic of teacher competence. In many cases, the critics of CLT contend that many teachers in EFL context are not equipped to teach English communicatively, and therefore have limited ability to implement CLT practices. So one solution, the first solution to overcome this expertise is to offer professional development. This professional development would entail Indonesian teachers upgrading their theoretical understanding and the practical application of the CLT approach. This professional development also functions as a medium of learning and teaching for teachers would enable CLT approach practitioners to connect between the theory and practice and also students' outcomes. To overcome the problem, we have to improve our professional development. The second one is about the second condition of effective professional development for CLT teachers in Indonesia is the need for it to be collaborative in nature. It is also important to overcome the problem. As we know that collaboration among colleges is perceived as having a great impact on the identification of both the causes and solution to the classroom problem. So we can share our problem to others and give some solution from other colleges. In the words of Easton, 2004, stated that powerful professional learning for teachers is generally collaborative and focuses on what is happening with learners in the classroom. So we have to consider to both of the point to overcome the teacher expertise. Next one, please. Okay, next one is about student participation. The second challenge of CLT implementation in Indonesia is the problem of low students' participation. In ASEAN EFL countries, where CLT is adopted as the national goal of English language education, students' lack of interest in collaborative and communicative activities has become a major concern. So besides the teacher expertise, also student participation has become a problem in the CLT application. One reason for resistance to class participation is the result of differences in cultural values and beliefs toward second language learning and teaching. But it is frequently asserted that learners' low motivation for communicative competence may stem from teaching practices that fail to interest and engage learners in a communicative classroom. So it back to the teacher guiding in the classroom. The students fail in lack of interest, fail because of the interest, the fail to interest and engage learners in the communicative classroom. Here, there are 3 steps that teachers can use to promote the level of participation in CLT. The first step that Indonesian CLT teachers should take is to set personal examples for their students. In this respect, teachers should keep in mind that whatever they do and say may influence students' behaviors, attitudes, and orientations toward learning. Okay, the second step that might be useful in lifting student motivation in a communicative classroom in Indonesia is to establish a safe and supportive atmosphere in the classroom. The classroom climate is a crucial part of learning process. If learners regard the classroom as a place where they feel comfortable and appreciated, they are likely to engage in learning. On the contrary, a tense classroom atmosphere is negatively linked with student motivation because it can raise student anxiety. Okay, the third one or the last one, the last step that should be taken to engage Indonesian CLT students in communicative activities is to make learning enjoyable. According to Dornier 2001, a low level of participation often results from learners' boredom and dissatisfaction with classroom tasks and activities which seem monotonous, unattractive, and passive to them. So the teacher have to make the learning enjoyable. Okay, the next one, please. The next one is about class size and teaching time. This is also be a problem in implementation of the CLT in Indonesia. Another major challenge that CLT teacher in Indonesia encounter at the level of practice involves classroom constraints such as the large class size and limited teaching time. Generally speaking, large classes and insufficient time for English teaching are 2 problems that commonly found in many EFL teaching contexts. To overcome the problems, the author of this article suggests the term of classroom harmonization. It belongs to the art of harmonizing learning and teaching activities in a particular local context by considering the physical conditions of a given classroom as well as the expected rules of students and teachers. So to overcome this problem, there is a term classroom harmonization. Another way of implementing this harmonization is by holding extracurricular activities outside the classroom. As we know that outside the classroom, the students have more time to speak to others, so they can improve the speaking time to their friends in order to get the communicative teaching activity. According to Brown, 2007, in EFL context where there is limited time for students to practice their English communicatively in classroom, CLT teachers can compensate for the situation by providing out-of-class communicative opportunities. So we can add our teaching activity outside the classroom to improve the speaking activity in the language teaching and learning. The next one, please. The last one of the problem that face in Indonesia in implementing the CLT is grammar-based syllabus and exam. At the level of curriculum implementation, it is often said that the greatest challenges for CLT teachers in EFL countries, including Indonesia, are thus how to teach communicatively in the presence of a structure-based syllabus and how to test students' communicative skills in absence of communicative language testing. These pedagogical phenomena are not easy for many CLT teachers to deal with, but there are some strategies that local teachers can be used to resolve these obstacles, such as adapting their teaching practice or finding alternative assessment. So we can also overcome this problem in our teaching classroom. According to Bose and Kohn, teaching in context or involving students in activities which connect the language context with its practical use. In teaching the concept of past tense, for example, rather than explaining the grammatical aspect of simple past tense at the beginning of the lesson, a CLT teacher might ask students to read a magazine, listen to audio tape, or watch a movie extract about dinosaurs as a schema building activity. So during this activity, students write down key verbs that they read or hear and then proceed to orally present or discuss some dinosaur facts in past tense form, such as what dinosaurs look like, where they live. So they learn past tense or structure or grammatical, but in communicative way. Okay, I think that's all about the implementation of CLT in Indonesia. Thank you, ma'am, and all of my friends. Okay. Udah stop, Mbak. Udah.